Not a single media expert or odds maker predicted that we would get to the midpoint of the 2024 season with the San Antonio Spurs sitting dead last in the Western Conference standings, most especially after the team just drafted 7'4" generational big man Victor Wembanyama. But to be fair, you can't blame Wembanyama for what this team's been going through. Just a few weeks past his 20th birthday, the French phenom is averaging 20.5 points and 10 rebounds per game, both of which leads all rookies, while his 3.1 block per game average already ranks first in the entire NBA. But what's crazy is Wemby's putting up those numbers while playing just under 29 minutes per contest given the minutes restriction imposed upon him by the Spurs medical staff. So this got me thinking, how much more dominant would Wembanyama's numbers have looked by now if the Spurs didn't limit him to 29 minutes per game beginning in mid-December? Or how many additional games could the Spurs have possibly won if Wemby wasn't prevented from playing back-to-back games for the most part of the season? The fact that Wemby's been so productive under such time constraints surrounding him is just straight up remarkable, especially for a rookie. But with that said, it's worth noting that nothing came easy both for Wemby and the Spurs up to this point of the season. After he erupted for 38 points in just his 5th NBA game, teams scouted Wembanyama more seriously and opposing defenders played him more physically. Then beginning in early November, the Spurs lost 18 consecutive games, and within that stretch, Wembanyama shot an awful 42% from the field. But the good thing is, as of late, we're actually witnessing a more refined and a more efficient version of Wembanyama, as over the past 21 games, Wemby's been shooting 49.4% from the field, which is a 6-point increase from his shooting percentage during the first 19 games of the season. Plus, over the past 21 games, he's also been averaging 3.6 blocks per contest, which is also an increase from the 2.6 blocks he had during the first 19 games of the year. But the question is, why are we paying so much attention to the sample size from Wemby's last 21 games? Well, it's because it's when the Spurs moved Zach Collins to the bench in order to make Wembanyama the team's starting center on a full-time basis. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here, and today, let's dive more into why Victor Wembanyama at the center position is much more terrifying than it actually looks. So let's get to it. Looking at it, the early season disappointment for the San Antonio Spurs is a result of lineup constructions that at times have seemed that they were designed to almost sabotage Wembanyama's development, because the Spurs began the season by attempting to play Jeremy Sochan at the point guard spot, despite him having very little aptitude for being a playmaker. In addition, the Spurs also lined up another center in Zach Collins next to Wemby at the starting frontcourt, which pushed Wembanyama further to the perimeter on both ends. Overall, the Wembanyama and Collins pairing was outscored by a massive 11.8 points per 100 possessions during the 25 games it lasted in the starting lineup. Meanwhile, the Spurs also defiantly resisted to play the one real point guard that they had in Tre Jones next to Wembanyama, despite the fact that Spurs lineups featuring Jones and Wemby together have actually outscored opponents by 3.9 points per 100 possessions. And while that number isn't mind-blowingly good, it's still a positive number for a Spurs team that's been outscored by more than 9 points per 100 possessions for the entire season. But the good thing is, slowly but surely, Coach Pop and the Spurs started to construct more ideal lineups on the floor as of late. They moved Jeremy Sochan off the ball, they moved Zach Collins to the bench and shifted Wemby to the starting center spot, which unsurprisingly put him closer to the basket, and after injuries to basically every other guard they had, San Antonio finally started Tre Jones at the point guard position. And with all those things happening, it's no surprise that now, as a 7'4" guy playing closer to the rim more than ever, while also being paired with a real passing point guard who knows how to feed him the ball in advantageous spots, Wemby's just been scoring much more easily and much more efficiently compared to the start of the season. One simple explanation for this is that the Tre Jones and Victor Wembanyama lob threat connection is real and it's looking quite unstoppable, and the numbers also back this up. As per PBP stats, when he shares the floor with Tre Jones, Wemby actually has a 61.3 true shooting percentage, which is basically equal to what Luka Doncic has been putting up this season. But when Wemby is on the court without Tre Jones, that number dips down to 50.5%, which is basically equal to what Ozar Thompson's been putting up for the Detroit Pistons. In this play, you can see Tre Jones bringing the ball down court, and on the weak side, you can see Wemby actually looking like he's going to set a pin-down screen for the trailing Chetty Osman, but then he just slips away from his defender into the paint as Tre Jones dishes out a lob, setting Wemby up for the easy finish. This time, you can see Tre Jones as the inbounder from the sideline with Wemby right at the elbows. Devin Vassell sets a quick pin-down screen against Wemby's defender, enabling the big man to cut through the lane. Tre Jones dishes out a high lob, resulting to another alley-oop basket from Wembanyama. But another advantage of playing Wembanyama at center is that while playing the 5, instead of him settling for low percentage 2-point jumpers off the dribble like he did earlier in the season, Wemby is now choosing to drive more into the lane, which has resulted to him getting more high efficiency looks at the rim. Looking at his numbers before moving to the center position, shots at the rim only consisted 31% of Wembanyama's field goals, but after moving to center, that's been up to 45%. Also, before moving to the center position, long mid-range jumpers occupied 18% of his shot diet, but since the move to center, that's been down to just 9%. Basically, the explanation here is that, now playing as a center, without another big man to share the front court with him who would clog the paint, and with opposing defenders now being more spread out to the perimeter, Wemby's now just got more space to attack the lane and to take advantage of his size, length, and his long strides to get to the basket, which is why we're seeing a more aggressive version of him off the dribble. Just like in this play, Wemby gets the inbound pass with his teammates all spread out around the perimeter. Tobias Harris closes out on him, but seeing the wide open lane, Wemby uses a jab and just uses his size to get to the rim with basically no resistance whatsoever in the paint. Then in this play, you can see Wemby operating in isolation with OKC's defense while spread out in space. Seeing the wide open lane, Wemby just puts his shoulder down against Chet Holmgren while straight up bulldozing his way into the rim for an easy dunk. But what's even scarier is the fact that Wembanyama's move to the center position has also further elevated his already tremendous impact on the defensive end. Well, for the Spurs, I think one benefit of playing Wembanyama at center is that it unlocks more of his defensive versatility. Cause looking at it, Wembanyama at center obviously now has to match up with opposing centers more often, and as we know, teams often run their pick and roll actions through their centers, which now enables Wembanyama to act more frequently as a drop coverage defender in those pick and rolls. The problem for opposing teams is that, as a drop coverage defender in pick and rolls, Wemby's defensive impact becomes even more apparent, because his size, length, and mobility allows him to disrupt not only rolling big man but ball handling guards as well. Just like here, you see Wemby as the drop defender against the Trae Young and Clint Capella pick and roll. You can see how Wemby just prevents any action from developing here. First, he swats the potential lob from Trae Young to Capella, and also, even as Trae gets the offensive board and attempts a floater, Wemby still completely denies the shot. Then again, in this pick and roll play between Tyus Jones and Marvin Bagley, you can see how Wemby perfectly closes the gap between ball handler and roll man. He totally erases Tyus Jones' layup attempt, and even as Marvin Bagley grabs the offensive board, Wemby's still there to deny the potential second chance opportunity. Well, the San Antonio Spurs are generally one of the worst defensive teams in the league this season, as they currently rank 25th in terms of defensive rating. But it's worth noting that since Wembanyama made the switch to the center position, the Spurs have been limiting opponents to 116.6 points per 100 possessions, which would make them pretty much a middle-of-the-pack defensive team ranking number 18 in the entire NBA. Well, without a doubt, Victor Wembanyama is already an overwhelming two-way force for the San Antonio Spurs, but sure, if we're just nitpicking, it would be easy to point to the fact that Wembanyama is still a subpar shooter from the perimeter, shooting just 31% on jumpers beyond 10 feet and just 29% from the three-point line. Well, he's shown touch from the perimeter, but his shot is still more of a developing skill instead of a go-to scoring option. Also, you can point to the fact that his turnover rate of 5.3 turnovers per 100 possessions is quite high. But again, this guy is a rookie, and just like any other rookie, he's obviously gonna get better with more NBA reps and with a better supporting cast around him. And what's crazier is that the flashes of dominance and the steady improvement he's displayed since day one already points to a stratospheric endpoint for Wembanyama when you project his trajectory a few years out. Cause again, the guy's been under a minutes restriction practically all season, so we haven't seen what he can do in extended minutes. But per 36 minutes, his numbers would actually translate to him averaging 26 points and 4 blocks. And no one in the history of the NBA has ever combined those numbers since advanced statistics tracking began. Well, it's crazy that Wembanyama is already must-watch TV right now, even if the Spurs have been losing. But what's crazier is the fact that when the time comes that Wembanyama finally gets to fully figure out the NBA game while playing his best position, which is center, he would certainly become much more dominant than he is right now. But do you guys believe that Victor Wembanyama is surely going to be the best player in the NBA in a few years? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.